Hello, Willowbrook family. Today's daily Devo is Ezekiel chapter 28. Have you ever heard the phrase, power behind the throne? It's when someone hides behind a person of authority and exerts their own authority and influence over that person. You may have an official ruler, but then have a secretive influencer in the background. And sometimes they can be very evil. That's the case in this chapter. Ezekiel 28 is a very difficult chapter to understand because there's more to it than meets the eye. Ezekiel continues in a series of prophecies against Tyre, which is a great commercial harbor city of the Phoenicians, and it's located north of Israel. Many conservative scholars believe that this chapter is actually about two rulers, the earthly ruler of Tyre and the dark spiritual ruler, Satan himself. Verses 1 through 10 deal mainly with the earthly ruler, a man probably named Ichabod. In some of your translations, he is known as the prince or the leader of Tyre. The fundamental sin of Tyre is pride. And really, Ezekiel is not only addressing Ichabod, but he is addressing the entire city as well. You see, Tyre regarded itself as all-powerful and superhuman because they thought of themselves as one of the richest and wisest nations on the earth. In fact, the prince of Tyre had such a high opinion of himself that he thought of himself as wiser than even Daniel. He also thought of himself as a god. All his great wealth had gone to his head and made him feel invincible. But Ezekiel has some strong words for Tyre and its leader. God will knock you down to size and your days are numbered. And he was right. In the future, the empire of Babylon would attack them, and God would wipe Tyre off the face of the map. Now, when you hear about the great sin of pride, who does that make you think of? Remember, this chapter is about two rulers, the earthly ruler of Tyre and the dark spiritual ruler, Satan himself, the power behind the throne. In verses 11 through 19, you'll see that Ezekiel is addressing the king of Tyre, not the prince. He's addressing the real ruler, the real power, Satan. You see, the idea of a prophet speaking about an earthly ruler and a spiritual ruler can also be seen in Isaiah 14 and in Daniel chapter 10. Now, in these next several verses, Ezekiel shows us a rare glimpse of Satan's place in heaven before he fell. You see, before his fall, Satan was a being who was adorned with great glory and splendor. Every precious stone was his covering. Also, before Satan fell, he had a significant role in the music of heaven. And some scholars even say that Satan was the worship leader of heaven. But we know for sure that he was one of the privileged angelic beings surrounding the throne of God. But this was not enough for Satan, and pride entered in, and Satan fell. Now, in verse 16, Ezekiel says, "By the abundance of your trade, you were internally filled with violence." The dishonest business practices of the leaders of Tyre were a reflection of the dishonest, deceptive dealings of the spiritual power behind them. Satan is the father of lies and will come only to steal, kill, and destroy. So, what does God do about Tyre? He wipes it off the face of the map. You can't even find the city of Tyre today. And one day, God will permanently remove Satan as well. and that will be a good day. Now, the last part of this chapter deals with the judgment against the city of Sidon, which is another Phoenician harbor city that's located about 15 miles north of Tyre. Now, even though Sidon is not a very powerful city anymore, but because of its close association and influence from Tyre, God must deal with them also. Just like when we have a close association and are influenced by the dark forces of this world, God's going to deal with us. So, when we look at our lives, who controls our throne? Do we allow God to sit on our throne and control our lives? Or do we want to sit on our own throne, but allow Satan to be the real power behind the throne? You know, that's challenging food for thought. And I'll tell you this, you'll never regret putting God on your throne. Have a great day in the Lord, Willowbrook.